I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And we have a very interesting episode for you today.
We do.
Because it's going to be, in light of, the current season we are in, hurricane season. We're going to talk about storm ghosts a little bit.
That sounds fun. But first, I'd like to say right now, a massive category 4 hurricane is battering the west coast of Florida. It's destroying Fort Myers as we speak, and it's extremely, extremely sad. So I just want to remind everyone, go out. We need to give blood as soon as everything is over. And if you're not even near the hurricane, go out now. Because it's
they're gonna need it.
They're gonna need it. It's pretty bad, as you're probably watching on the news and all that. But yeah.
Or if you can't give blood, definitely consider donating to your local American Red Cross or any kind of organization that will help with hurricane relief, because it's no joke. As two people who grew up in Florida, we know how it is.
I was in Miami in 200005, so that should tell you everything.
It's like the worst year to live in Miami. It really was.
It really is. Yeah, Wilma is just really awful. But here in Savannah, we're actually gonna catch us a hurricane.
Ian is anticipated to come up to Savannah at some point. Obviously, nowhere near as brutally as it is right now, but it's expected to currently cut through Florida and swing back over to Savannah as around a Hurricane 1 or Cat 2.
Yep. So we are recording this about 24 to 48 hours before the hurricane actually hits us. But I'm going to get this scheduled, and you will have your Saturday episode, power or not.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, so we're actually not going to necessarily be talking about any spirits from Savannah for this episode. I do want to say that because though Savannah has had brutal hurricanes in its history, it's very interesting that even though it killed quite a few people, there are no reported spirits from these hurricanes.
Okay.
So the problem is with an incident such as a hurricane, it can be a little bit tricky to pinpoint a spirit to that specific event.
Yeah, to tie the spirit to the actual hurricane.
Yeah,
sure.
Especially in a place like Savannah.
It would just be like identity, really.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So it's in the same gist of if there was a widespread fire, we can sometimes assume they might have been associated with a spirit, but I couldn't find anything solid, and I didn't know of anything solid that I was like, this is definitely a spirit from one of the hurricanes. But for your Savannah little bit of tidbit, in 1820, what really sparked off one of the biggest yellow fever epidemics was a hurricane. So it was like almost a hurricane, I should say. It was more of like a tropical storm, tropical depression of sorts, but it was enough wind and force that it tore down a lot of buildings, filled up a lot of buildings, creating that standing water, allowing for those mosquito populations to thrive, essentially.
And therefore, you have yellow fever.
Yes. So there you go for your Savannah tidbit. But for today, we are going to be talking about one lore that I grew up knowing from Pawleys Island, and then also Pawleys Island, South Carolina. I should clarify that. But then also one from Key West, Florida.
All right.
Which
well, I'm excited.
Definitely keep Key West in your thoughts, also because they just got battered as well by the hurricane unexpectedly. So, yes. Now, let's start off with the Key West hurricane.
Okay, let's do it.
So both of these stories I'm going to tell you about happened in the 1800s. The first one, the Key West story, happened in 1846. It's referred to as the Havana hurricane.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so this was a Cat 5 hurricane, which is a very intense hurricane, especially back in
it's
that.
the most intense.
Well, it is, but it's also, imagine being in the 1800s and not having any of the technology we have nowadays to track hurricanes, and not knowing it's even coming, and you can't prepare for it.
Yeah.
So like it's a very, very devastating thing. So Cat 5 hurricane hit Key West, Florida, and it left absolute just desolation to the land. So the land was covered with bodies of victims who were drowned or hit by flying debris. And among them were also coffins and corpses, because the storm had unearthed the old cemetery on Whitehead Point, turning bones into... Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know how intense a Cat 5 can be.
No, I know.
So
like Katrina did the same exact thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that, if that gives you any idea, it can literally just, the wind can unearth these remains. And so it actually turned bones into projectiles. We shouldn't laugh about that.
No,
but,
we should. That's actually insanely funny.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And it deposited them in unexpected places throughout the island. So they were just finding bodies everywhere, and they didn't know if it was from, people who died, or if it was from the cemetery, or like what it was. But the number of deaths and disturbed graves from that one disaster alone is why some people believe that Key West has so many phantom mysteries, like phantom occurrences for the paranormal.
Okay.
Because there are quite a few entities that they encounter on that island that have nobody has any clue where they came from.
So it could very well come from a storm.
Yes. So, going back to my original point with Savannah, it's the same kind of concept. When you have mass casualties of that nature, if, it's just normal people, it's not like there's any kind of identifying things about them. When you have soldiers and stuff, you see soldier spirits are usually still in their uniforms, or there's some kind of identifying thing about them, whether it's the way they behave, the way they move,
Sure.
Things like that, that are able to be like, okay, cool, that's a soldier ghost. But like when you have regular just citizens living their lives and then they die suddenly, of course it's going to be hard to figure out who they are. But yes, so during this storm, 2 lighthouses fell and killed everybody for the most part who was inside of them seeking refuge.
Oh, wow.
And so both locations are now haunted by apparitions, disembodied voices, and supernatural activity. We're going to go into those.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure we are.
The first one is going to be they refer to him as a former pirate. He's very loosely a pirate.
They love to do that.
I know.
Towards destinations like, we got a ghost pirate.
Yes. He is very loosely a pirate. But he was a nautical man of sorts.
Yeah.
So his name is Captain Joshua Appleby. He was
Appleby?
Yeah, I knew when I was writing this, JT was going to make some comments.
What do you mean?
You were just such a goober.
Does he have unlimited
mozzarella
riblets?
sticks?
No, riblets.
Probably. Well, I'm sure his ribs were turned into riblets, but
Oh boy! All right.
I'm sorry, that was mean. Anyways, but yes, Captain Joshua Appleby was from New England. He moved to Key West and started making money from things he found in shipwrecks. Yes, go ahead and adjust the tablecloth.
Yeah, just to keep talking.
Okay, but anyways, so the government actually ended up accusing Appleby of conspiring with pirates, which is where he gets the pirate lore from, to intentionally run ships aground.
Wow.
So, but officers could not secure concrete evidence of this, and so he was released, obviously. But in an odd career change of sorts, going from running ships aground, allegedly, he actually became the keeper of the Sand Key Lighthouse, which is like their whole purpose is to keep ships from running into things and sinking. So, kind of ironic. But regardless, the Sand Key Lighthouse was 5 miles off the coast of Key West. And in October of 1846, Appleby's daughter and friends came to visit Sand Key Island. So they had no idea when they came to visit that there was this massive hurricane heading their way. They all thought that it was going to be a nice trip, visiting, family and friends and yada, yada, yada. They all ended up perishing in that storm.
Whoa.
Because So 16 people ended up dying in general on Sand Key Island during the storm. It's a really small key in the Keys, so 16 people's a lot.
But the key deer survived.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
He's like, who cares about the people? You know, the key deers.
The key deer are the cutest animals.
They're really cute.
If you don't know what a key deer is, they're pretty sure they're like super endangered.
I'm pretty sure they are, yeah.
Check them out.
They're really cute.
They're small deer.
They're small.
Small. All right.
Yes. So many said that they tried to ride it out in the lighthouse, which is a logical place to go to if there's a hurricane.
That's where I'd go.
Yeah, you would think that the lighthouse would be able to hold up against
That's the whole point of a lighthouse.
Right?
It's like in a brutal storm to shine a beam of hope through.
There was no beams of hope in this situation. So
wow.
Now, so no one knows what happened to them exactly because the entire lighthouse station was washed away without a trace.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
So if any of you are ever considering staying put during a Cat 5 hurricane, let these stories be warning to you.
Just don't do that.
Just don't do it. Because it's brutal. Mm-hmm. But yes, so their bodies were never found. But some people have said that they have encountered them as spirits in where the new lighthouse is. So the new lighthouse was built in 1853, and the new keepers claimed that they would hear the sound of the captain's voice as well as the voice of children, and sometimes those voices were happy, other times they sounded agitated.
Okay.
So, that's a pretty basic residual haunting. So, in my opinion, I don't know if they're necessarily there as intelligent hauntings, just from the reports of that. Basically, everything that I read was kind of just, residual things of just hearing voices and whatnot. And
gotcha.
when that many people die so quickly, it's gonna, we've talked about that before, where
they're gonna release some energy.
Yeah, of course. That's like a horrible way to die, getting washed away without a trace and having a lighthouse crumble onto you.
Yeah, that's
horrific.
For sure.
So that one's the, I would say, the entry level of.
Oh, thank God they get better.
Yeah. Okay, well, there's no demonic things, so I don't know where you think this is going.
Yeah,
but
I promise y'all it's gonna get better than that.
Okay.
I'm just joking, man. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Gosh.
Your research is awesome. No, like it told a story. The story needs to be better next time.
I'm sorry. I'll let them know. I'll let those ghosts know that they should have died in a worse way. I'll let them know. I'll make a message for them.
You probably could, honey. You probably could go talk to them.
For your okay. JT's being exiled, everyone. I think we're all
get exiled every episode.
I think we're all in agreement here.
Man.
So
yeah.
Anyways, so Barbara Marberty is our next spirit.
All right, Barb.
She ain't gonna attack nobody. I just want to clarify that now if you're getting your hopes up for that. So she was actually one of the first female lighthouse keepers in the U.S.
That's interesting.
She was the keeper of the Key West Lighthouse. Her husband actually was initially hired, but he died of yellow fever a few years later.
Yikes.
And so she would take over and dedicated the next 38 years of her life to keeping the lights on.
All right.
Well, when the hurricane of 1846 hit the Key West area, she and her 6 children took refuge inside of the lighthouse. Well, the family was joined by a handful of other residents that were looking for shelter from the 150-mile-per-hour winds that this hurricane sustained.
Whoa, Cat 4.
Yep. So the walls of the tower couldn't withstand, and the entire structure collapsed. And after the storm passed, bodies were found littered throughout the area where the tower once stood.
Wait, so another lighthouse?
Yes. All in Key West.
Okay, so
they were
basically
5 miles
in Key West, they can't build a lighthouse. I mean, there are lighthouses. I'm not kidding. There are lighthouses like that I know that I've heard of that have endured insane storms. I mean, freaking, in the Bering Sea, right? Like up in Alaska. I mean, just brutal storms, and they do it all the time. And then in Key West, they lose. How many lighthouses have we lost so far in this episode? And we're only like 14 minutes in? Less than?
2.
We've lost 2.
Yeah.
I thought there were 3.
No, 2.
You said 2 lighthouses went down in the first story. No,
I did not.
Oh, I'm just thinking that.
Yes.
All right. So 2 lighthouses so far in
and
Key
they were
West.
5 miles apart from each other. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yes, she would actually, she would live. Barbara would live, but her 6 kids all died. All of her kids died.
Wow.
And her husband was dead, so she was now a widow, and all of her kids were dead.
Ooh.
After this storm.
Poor Barb.
I know. Now,
Eek.
a new tower was built near the former site years later, and Barbara continued working there as the keeper until she was fired for making comments that were deemed disloyal to the Union.
Okay.
Which I think is like some hogwash, in my opinion. Because I'm like...
Hogwash.
Did she really make comment? Like, how much did Key West really care about the Union? You know what I mean?
I don't. I mean, there's been a bunch of I thought there were like battles there.
Sure, but like Key West is so. Think about it. Key West is so far away from the Union.
Okay.
Why would they really need to care all that much? They kind of like lived off of their own little tiny set of government to begin with.
Yeah, the Conch Republic.
Yeah, so why do they care? I think it was because in the 1800s, it was deemed kind of odd for a woman to be holding such a high ranking job.
It's probably sexist. That's how it usually goes.
I think they were trying to find a reason to fire her, and that was their reasoning, even though it literally destroyed her. Because she dedicated her life to this. Like
she's lost everything.
She spent 38 years of her life. She went through a hurricane. She lost all of her family, and she still kept on with that career. And they just fire her over a comment.
That's
I'm
crazy.
sorry. Justice for Barbara.
Justice for
Barbara. Because honestly, that makes me so mad for her. But anyways, so sorry about my tangent. I just thought that was ridiculous.
That was quite the tangent, honey.
She adamantly denied it, but was still removed from the job. And she actually ended up dying 3 years after getting fired. And I think it's because her soul was broken from that, you know?
I mean, if her soul wasn't broken already from losing all of her family and stuff.
Yeah, that was like kind of like, in my opinion, the final straw. That was all she had left. And like,
okay, so she be haunting?
Yeah, she do be haunting. So,
okay, dope.
So soon after her death, people started seeing Barbara back at the lighthouse, but obviously she was dead, so it was kind of a weird flex. But hauntings at Key West Lighthouse continue to this day, and many believe that the spirits of the victims of the hurricane also still roam the area in their afterlife. Now, I have 2 lengthy encounters that people have had that they believe are attached to Barbara.
Ooh, nice.
So, one visitor said that as she was climbing the brutal 88 steps, because yes, it takes 88 steps to get to the top of that lighthouse, which sucks.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It sucks. So, like,
you did it?
I did not do it because I did not want to do that. But,
okay.
But anyways,
then how do you know it sucks?
Because I've been in lighthouses before, and lighthouses always have the smallest little steps. So it's like 88 small little steps, and it's like...
Shouldn't that make it easier? If they're half a step, shouldn't that be like 44 steps?
No, they're 88 small steps.
All right.
So, anyways, she was climbing the 88 steps. She felt someone behind her, and she knew that her family was touring the lighthouse as well, so she thought it could have been one of them. She turned around to talk to someone, and there was no one there. So she kept walking up the stairs. She had the same feeling once again and stopped and looked behind her. There was no one there again. She said the feeling got stronger and stronger, and the higher she climbed. When she finally got to the top, she sighed and took some time to catch her breath. While she was looking out the window, she felt a very cold wind come through the room. Ooh. Keep in mind, it was 85 degrees that day.
Wow.
Which is actually really mild for Key West. But anyways, she was unsure where the cold air was coming from, but appreciated it because she was worn out from the climb. She stood at the window.
When you're like, oh, thank God there's a ghost here.
Literally, honestly, mood. I feel her. She stood at the window for a few minutes looking at the view, and then she decided she would go back down the stairs. Before she left the window, she said she felt as if someone was giving her a hug.
Aww.
She looked around again to see if anyone was around her and still saw no one. She said the hug was gentle and it felt as if someone wanted to comfort her on her climb down the stairs. She said no matter what or who it was that she felt there, she never felt scared or threatened and feels that the ghost is friendly and very welcoming. That's sweet. Are you going to have an attitude this whole
Well,
episode?
I need a little more violence.
Well, I'm sorry. There's not. We can't give you that. Actually, interestingly enough, all of the hurricane spirits that I looked up, all are not mean.
Yeah.
So, because
I really like the Gray Man. That's what I'm excited to talk about.
Okay, but the Gray Man's not mean either.
No, he's not mean. He's not mean. But okay. So like, I guess when I say like violence, I'm like kind of like joking. It's mainly just I want some darkness in there, and that was so sweet. Like, it was so sweet. Like, I'm like, a hug and also some cool air to cool you down. Like, bruh, like, I'm just like, come on. Like, no, the Gray Man is really interesting. Can we jump to the Gray Man?
No, we have another encounter to talk about with Barbara.
Okay, let's talk about this encounter. Okay. Then, y'all, we're getting to the Gray Man. I promise you the Gray Man's the bomb.
Okay, anyways, another woman who visited the lighthouse had a similar story, but she actually saw something. Ooh. This woman was, it's not going to be dark, Jay. I'm sorry.
Is it standing in the corner?
No.
Is it naked? Is it shriveled up and smiling?
You're on your worst behavior this episode. You really are. Like, this is just showing, though, that ghosts are not always mean. Like, no, they don't have to be mean to be interesting.
We just don't talk about the nice ones.
Because, well, there's, sometimes it's nice to talk about the nice ones.
All right.
Anyways, so another woman who visited the lighthouse had a similar story, but she actually saw something. This woman was also with a tour group at the lighthouse. Before they all climbed up the stairs, the tour guide was showing them around the lower level of the lighthouse. The woman said she felt a hand brush through her hair in a very playful way.
So now she's like giving you scritches on your head. She's like, you are really, you're
killing it.
You're killing it. You are so good.
I love that for her, though.
I love that you came to visit me.
She looked at the couple next to her, and they hadn't moved, so she knew it wasn't them. The tour continued, and it happened again. This time, she heard a playful laugh. She looked around.
Now that's creepy.
Mm-hmm. She looked around, and the couple next to her asked if she was all right. She asked if they felt a breeze come through or heard anything, and they both said they hadn't. For fear of seeming crazy, the woman thought that she should keep her thoughts to herself. As the tour group began to climb up the stairs, the woman looked to her left, and what she saw almost made her fall down the stairs. Ooh. She saw what she thinks is the ghost of Barbara Marbrady.
Why?
Because it looked like a woman. So I think that's it. That was literally what the encounter said.
Alrighty. Gray Man it up. Let's do it.
Also, just for clarification, too, her children are seen on the property also. Oftentimes, two little girls are seen on the front lawn holding hands and skipping through the lawn. So.
Wow. Okay, so in Key West, other than Robert the Doll, which we have another episode on Robert the Doll, and you can find that on YouTube. They're really sweet down there. I mean, why wouldn't they be? They have this beautiful place, Yeah, it's even their residual hauntings,
are just chill.
Yeah, they're they love the sun. All right.
But anyways, okay, so the Gray Man.
Yes.
So I actually grew up knowing about the Gray Man because my family has had a house in what is considered technically Garden City. And so that is right next to Pawleys Island in South Carolina. And so I forget who told me about it. Somebody in my family told me about the Gray Man, which has been in South Carolina folklore, specifically Pawleys Island, folklore since 1822.
Yeah, it's a very It's
an old
very
story.
popular story too. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners might know about it, especially if they're from the southeast,
Low Country
Yeah, the Low
area.
Country.
But it is an interesting story, just because it's also kind of sweet, his backstory.
Yeah, but I'm cool with this one because there's like a real big aggressive storm coming. And anyway, all right, let's get into it. Let's get into it.
So he dates back, as I said, to 1822. He is a cloaked figure who roams the beach at Pawleys Island ahead of major storms that threaten the area. So his story, basically, a young man who had been at sea for a very long time was traveling from Charleston to see his fiancée to ask for her hand in marriage. Hoping to shorten the trip because of an approaching storm, the man and his horse would take a shortcut through the marsh just outside of Pawleys Island. As the sun began to set, his horse became bogged down in the pluff of mud, and through
pluff of mud.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how the story goes.
All right. Hashtag pluff of mud.
Yes, and we can link the story too if you guys want to read about it some more. But
yeah,
in the pluff of mud, and through that is a fun word, and threw the man into the ground. The water and thick mud entrapped him and pulled him under the surface. It sounds like quicksand to me.
Yeah, can you escape a pluff?
I've never heard of a pluff up until this moment, so I mean...
All right, let's see if he escapes the pluff.
So, I know if he does or not, but...
I don't know the backstory of the Gray Man. I just know what the Gray Man represents.
So, now, it pulled him under the surface, killing him. Devastated by the news.
That happened quickly.
Well, you didn't let me finish my sentence, so you would have gotten there before you made the comment. The deadly pluff.
The deadly pluff.
Devastated by the news of her lover's death, the young woman started taking regular walks on the beach to clear her mind. She would later come across a figure standing in her usual path. It was a familiar man dressed in all gray. As she approached the figure, she would recognize the face of her lover. Knowing he had been killed, the woman began to question the man, but all he could do was warn her to leave the island. A serious storm was approaching. He then vanished. The woman rushed home and told her family what had happened. In shock from the sighting, they heeded his warning and gathered their belongings and headed inland. Soon after, the area would be lashed by a powerful hurricane, leaving only one home untouched. Hers.
What? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Now that is solid. I love that.
It's very romantic, though.
So if you're still listening and you got through those lighthouse stories,
God.
I love this one. We need to. So here's what we need to do. Her parents right now evac from Tampa because they live in Tampa, and they are actually up there near Pawleys Island, right?
Yeah, they're about 20 minutes outside of Pawleys Island.
Yeah, 20 minutes outside
of
the
beach house.
Yeah, the beach house, and we should ask because the hurricane is going to cut through Florida and then come back around to the East Coast, like Savannah, all the way up to Myrtle Beach and all of that. We should see if the Gray Man's chinchillin.
Well,
there.
they would have to go to Pawleys Island. He is pretty strictly in Pawleys Island. So.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he is said to roam the beaches the day before a hurricane is set to make landfall there. So you would have to go the day before.
All right.
We should definitely
get your parents to do that.
Yeah. We definitely can.
I mean, and we'll post. I think we'll ask your parents to do that, and if we find anything, we'll post it on our Patreon.
Yes,
for the
absolutely.
Parajunkies.
So most people usually use him as an omen that they need to leave from the storm.
Okay.
Because obviously there's a lot of people that are like, should we evacuate? Yada yada yada. But like if he shows up, people are like, oh, we got to get out of here.
How often is he seen?
So, interestingly enough, there's a woman who's lived in Pawleys Island her entire life, and she has claimed to see the Gray Man 3 times for 3 different hurricanes. So, the woman claims that she has seen the hurricane before Hurricane Hazel in 1954. She saw him again before Hurricane Hugo, which is the one that destroyed my beach house in 1989.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a horrible hurricane. If you guys ever if you're interested in weather history, that was literally just so devastating. And then the most recent appearance that she saw was before Hurricane Florence in 2018.
Wow.
So
That's crazy. Okay, wait, does it have her name?
No. Obviously, she's elderly, so she might not want her name out there or something.
I wonder if we could find her name just so we can
that was
Facebook
on like a
her
local news article.
Yeah, I wonder
if
we could locate her and just ask her if she want to talk to us, because that'd be a really good bonus content episode for Patreon.
Yeah, the local paper outlet that I got that from, they only referred to her as a woman.
Okay, gotcha.
So I feel like she probably didn't. Well, I mean, you got to think about it. Some people, they have ghostly encounters and they feel like people will judge them for having those encounters. So they don't want people to know that they had those.
So what I want to know is, why is he dressed in gray?
So there's a lot of different reasons why spirits come back in certain colors, like the woman in white, the woman in brown. It usually has to do with their, their purpose of sorts. And I think his is just to solely be like an omen. Okay. So he's just a very neutral spirit. You feel he's like very much neutral, not good, not bad, but
I wonder if so when a ghost, like a malevolent ghost or a spirit is trying to show itself, it'll look like something or wear something or have something in its hand, type of deal, or throw something and try to get your attention. I wonder if, because the gray man is not a scary ghost. It's not a ghost that's supposed to hurt you or scare you. It's a ghost that's supposed to warn you and save your life. I wonder if he wears all gray to stick out in a non-scary way, so you look at him, because imagine you walking down a beach and a man is wearing all gray and just looks super gray. Well, you're gonna look at him.
Another reason could be, when he died in the mud, it could just be the residual coloring that was left on his clothes. You never know.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot. It can be as simple as things like that. You really never quite know.
But the pluff would be brown. Are you saying the pluff would wash out?
Well, no. You know how sometimes when you get mud on you and it dries and it turns gray?
Oh, like a clay type of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking brown mud, but you're thinking more of a
swampy mud.
A swampy mud. Got it. Well, cool.
So, yeah. I don't know if it's that deep of why he's wearing a gray coat. It also could just be the fact that nobody knows what he really looked like, because there's some guesses of people who have tried to figure out who he might have been. I know there was this one guy who worked on a rice plantation or something, and they believed he was the one who turned into the gray man. But then there's been some other people. There's really no solid person.
Yes.
It could just be the fact that he's become just this very he has no identity anymore, so he's just gray.
Yeah, I mean that definitely. So, I would love to talk to that person. So
if she's still alive,
yeah, I'm gonna do some googling. We're gonna have some downtime here before the storm, so I'm gonna do some googling and see if I can't find him, and then find her, and then I'll just Facebook Messenger. If she wants to hit back, she can hit back.
Well, so here's the thing: if she saw the first sighting, her first sighting of Gray Man in 1954. Mm-hmm. Who knows how old she was at that point? She might not be alive anymore.
2018.
It is 2022.
I know,
that's a lot of time for somebody who's elderly. It's
yeah, but she could have saw him young, and I'm gonna look anyway.
Okay. You try your best, buddy.
We have time for one more story, and Madison knows it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite stories. It's a very spine-tingling story, and it is about the wet ghosts in Japan after the tsunami.
Yes. So I can't remember what specific village it was in.
No, I definitely don't remember what specific village it was in.
But basically what happened was, Japan obviously has a lot of tsunamis.
They've got a lot of fish, but they got a lot of weather too.
I was waiting for him to make that joke at some point in this, but comment down below if you actually get that reference, or if JT's just too old at this point.
poo.
You've been so mean to me this entire episode. So you have been so mean to me.
I love you. I don't mean to be mean. I'm sorry.
Anyways, so basically, during one of the tsunamis that occurred, it was like a tsunami that was so large that killed like hundreds of people.
Thousands, I believe.
Thousands, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't want to go too far and people be like, actually, it was 356.
If we don't have our facts straight, we get checked. Yes. Okay, we get checked.
Yeah,
and so we're constantly like, let's just be under.
Yeah,
let's not go over. It's
yeah,
so funny.
Exactly.
But yeah, lots of people died. And it was I think it was like, oh God, 2014. I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Google it.
tell them the story. I'll Google it.
Basically, though, so a lot of people died, obviously, and there were people reporting that these people would come up to their door and knock on their door and they'd be soaking wet from head to toe. Like 2011. Did it say where it was?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Well, regardless, so people would report that these people would come up to their door and they'd be soaking wet, and it would look like they had just dived headfirst into a swimming pool.
It was one person.
Was it? It was just one. I thought.
So
well, there were other people who had different encounters. Like taxi cab drivers had a lot of encounters with this too. But we'll talk about the person who had,
sure.
The guy. So this guy comes up to his door. He's soaking wet. He looked like he dived into a swimming pool in all of his clothes. And he was like, "Can I have dry clothes?" Mm-hmm. And so, of course, the guy was like, "Yeah, come in. Like this is really weird, but whatever." So he invites the guy in. And then he later looks outside, and there's hundreds of soaking wet people standing out in front of his house.
Very
and he
creepy.
realized that it was the spirits of the people who died during the tsunami. And they were essentially looking for some type of kindness or just someone to like almost
clothes.
like they're lost souls of sorts,
Very haunting.
It is.
It's very, very haunting. The fact that the person's just standing out there, obviously. But I think also there was no rain or anything, and the person could not get dry. I mean, this person was absolutely wet. The story that I heard, it might not be the same that you heard, babe, but it was a woman who answers the door, and there's a woman outside, and the woman is absolutely sopping wet, and she's asked for dry clothes, and the woman does not invite her in. The woman instead goes, grabs the clothes, says yes, grabs a towel and clothes, comes back. When she opens the door, there's a bunch of the same, just like men and women soaked, all standing, not necessarily in a line, but just all, behind her. And they're all just like shivering and wanting dry clothes. And that is just so
creepy.
It is so creepy. Oh my gosh, it's so creepy. Like how you said the lost soul thing. I mean, that's exactly how it feels.
Yeah, there was also reports from taxi drivers who were encountering this similar thing, which I think is really interesting because it kind of pairs well with the hitchhiker lore, hitchhiker ghost lore that most places have. But basically, there were taxi drivers who would have people come up to their taxi and they'd be soaking wet and they're like, "Can I have a ride?" And so of course the taxi driver, it's their job to drive people, so they're like, "Yeah, get in," like kind of like weirded out that these people are soaking wet. And basically it would have them like the spirit would have them go to like all these random places and be like, "Actually, can I go to this place? Actually, can I go to this place?" and run up this tab. And then when they finally get to the last place, they look in the back and there's nobody there. But then the taxi driver was left still having to pay. Now they have to pay for this large tab. And so there was actually this outrage from taxi drivers. They're like, the ghosts are costing us money.
Yeah, but then there were also taxi drivers that were that would recognize that person was most likely a spirit and would give the spirit a ride on and actually know that he or she has to pay for it.
Yeah.
Out of the kindness of their heart.
Yeah, well, and of course there are some people who are down with that, but when you're on the job and that's your money that you're now having to get rid of, and you're thinking, you're like, "Oh, cool, I'm going to make a lot of money off of this ride," and then all of a sudden the person's gone and your back seat's wet. It's like, oh God.
Yeah, it's true.
Sucks,
It's true. Yep. Well, this has been a fun episode, and everyone, stay safe, stay dry.
Yes.
If you're in the Southeast, if not, again, give blood. Definitely
donate canned goods, blankets,
all that stuff.
things
All that
of
stuff.
that
I know
nature.
that we're all going to need it, especially our brothers and sisters down south in Florida for sure. So yeah, cool.
Yes, and we will be, for those of you who are concerned if we're going to be fine here in Savannah, we'll be fine. JT and I are very well prepared.
Yeah, we're pros.
Yeah, well, we got this.
Pros.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, our house is like 5 feet above ground. It's like it's not on stilts or anything, but it's like it's got a raised foundation.
How I like to put it, I'm like, if our house has been able to survive since 1840, I think it'll make it through one more storm. So,
and then our driveway's on a slant, so it's kind of like it kind of like all the water will drain down the driveway and like unfortunately go to the other houses that are on a level plane below us.
Yeah.
That's weird how downtown kind of does that, where there'll be like a random hill somewhere.
Maybe we're just built on top of graves. Maybe it's just a big stack of graves. And
maybe
it
is a big stack of graves.
We have
Honestly,
no idea.
Yeah, I did some digging to build a fence around our house, and I was digging with a post hole, and I found stuff from like the early 1900s. I showed you some of it.
Did you?
Yeah.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, it was like these super old rusty nails, nuts and bolts.
Oh yes.
There was a metal. There were there was like a metal or aluminum, aluminum cans with super old labels on them, like Coke. Now these are ruined, so I threw them away. But I mean, this glass and the aluminum and all of that, it's so old. So and that's only what I had to dig. I probably had to dig like 3 or 4 feet. That's only 3 or 4 feet in the ground, in downtown Savannah. Imagine what you can find if you just start digging around in Savannah. Our soul is super haunted with not only bodies and stuff like that, but just memories and old objects.
Yeah. It was funny when we first moved into our house, the previous owners actually left behind a frame with a printed out piece of document that had every single owner from the time the house was built.
Yeah.
Which was so cool.
It was cool. It's really cool. We still have it.
Yep,
you could probably bring it if you want to see it, or we'll post it on
Patreon if you guys want to see it. But yeah.
Cool.
All right. Awesome.
All right. Well, consider being a para-junkie, becoming a para-junkie, because all the para-junkies get this episode a couple days ago.
Yep, absolutely.
And then some bonus content, and and then if you just want to stay up to date with us, we can do some fun things sometimes. So we post on Patreon quite a bit.
Absolutely.
And we love our patrons.
Yes. But thank you guys for listening, and we really appreciate you. If you were the person in your car in front of PJ's tie that stopped JT and I in the street and was like, I love your podcast. Thank you. I really appreciate you. We wish we could have actually gotten to talk to you, but obviously we were in the middle of the road, so that was not safe, but it's okay. But thank you for reaching out to us. So if you guys ever see us in Savannah, please feel free to talk to us.
Say hey.
But yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. So thank you guys again. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And stay spooky, y'all.